Welcome back everyone to another Khan Academy tutorial. This particular Khan Academy is graphs of square root and cube root functions. This is an extension of the Radicals chapter 7 that we've been working on. So let's go ahead and get started. So this exercise asks, or it gives us the information, the graph of y equals the square root of x is shown below. And as you can see, it's how we described a square root function before, the principal square root that is. With it starting at 0, 0, and then curving slightly upwards to the right infinitely, okay? So it asks, which of the following is the graph of y equals 2 times the quantity, 2 times the radical x plus 2. So it gives us 4 options to choose from, multiple choice. And we can kind of take what we know from transformations of functions and apply it to this, but I'm kind of break it down assuming that you don't know how to do those transformations, okay? So let me get to my workboard here. I think the key to this problem, or any of these problems, is understanding what square roots we like to take. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm thinking about perfect squares. Underneath the radical, we like these following numbers if possible. Okay, and we'll just stay with these 4 because these are the 4 smallest that are really easy to work with, okay? So with our problem, we're not really concerned with this 2 out in front. Yes, it's going to affect how our graph looks, but we're concerned with manipulating underneath this radical, okay? So underneath this radical, we want the value, let me change it to this color. We want this value to equal one of these 4. Okay? So let's think about that for a second. Y equals 2 times the radical. Now the problem is we have this plus 2 on there. Okay? So if we want our value to equal 0, let's take that for example. If we want it to equal 0, what do we need to do to get 0 if we have a plus 2 already there? So what do we need to add to positive 2 to get 0? Okay, that's one way to think of it. So if you're thinking about this and you say, oh, I know that 2 plus a negative 2 is going to equal 0, then you're right. Okay, so one of the values we're going to think for x is negative 2. Now, what am I talking about with these values of x? Well, we're looking at values of x to see what we get for y, to see where it goes on the graph, okay? So, and the reason why we pick negative 2 is because we know it's going to give us a solid and easily graphed value for y. So as I plug in negative 2 for x, I plug in negative 2 in for x, and that's where this goes on this little chart over here. Boy, I really wish there was an undo button. But this will work. Okay, so as I plug in negative 2 for x, what happens? Well, that's what this is about right here. So I get y equals 2 radical, and I get 0. That was the whole point. That's why I chose negative 2 for x, so I could get 0. Okay, so now I have y equals 2 times the square root of 0, which is 0, so I get y equals 0. This is super important because this shows us one of our first values of our function, okay, which I will graph in which color I haven't really used. I'll use purple. So our graph, this is our first point. This is a point on the graph, negative 2, 0, which is right there, okay? Now, let's just proceed. Let's get maybe 2 more points, and then it'll give us an idea what our graph looks like. And some of you might be able to do it with fewer than that. I mean, we can already eliminate choices based on that first point. But let's go ahead and keep going just so you get the idea. Okay, so I'm going to erase that. I'm going to erase that value. I'm going to go ahead and erase all this work. Okay, that's why it's important if you ever need to pause and stop just so you can copy down stuff, make sure you do that. That's the advantage of having a video. You can pause, rewind, all that stuff. Slow motion. I don't encourage slow motion, though. All sound very weird. Weirder than normal. Okay, so now what do I want to happen? Well, I want there to be a 4 underneath that radical. That's an easy number for me to take the radical, the square root of, okay? But how do I get there? What do I add to positive 2 to get 4. Okay, so x, some number. Let's change it. Let's not change it to x. Let's say some number n plus 2, and we want it to equal what? We want it to equal 4. Okay, so clearly, based on really rudimentary algebra, we're going to get that we need to input 2 into this. So if we input 2, I don't know why I chose green. If I input 2, I'm going to end up with 4. Okay, so if I put in 2 for x, now I'm going to go over here to my table. I put in 2 for x. I know I'm going to get 4, and that's going to be a nice integer for me to have for y. Okay, so let's simplify this. I get y equals 2 times radical 2 plus 2 is 4. That was the whole point of me choosing 2 for x here. I'm just going to re-emphasize that. So now I have y equals 2 times the square root of 4, which is 2. Y equals 4. Okay, so now I have another point. My second point is 2 comma 4. So 2 comma 4, that's my second point. You could probably already select the answer. You could stop right here and be like, okay, I'm going to select my Khan Academy answer, A, B, C, or D, whatever it is, and move on. Okay, I'm going to do one more time just so you really understand what we're doing here. Okay, so let me erase this. Let me erase this value, erase this 2, and the work. Okay, so now I want underneath the radical to be another perfect square. So let's choose 9. We want underneath the radical to be 9. Okay, so what do I need to put into x to make it equal to 9? Well, I can go back up here, and I know I'm going to have to add 2. Okay, that's what this is about, right? Right here, I have to add 2 to whatever that is, that value, to get 9. Okay, some of you can do this in your head, and that's perfect. Okay, I'm just really breaking it down for those, living dangerously, 5% left. So we know that some number plus 2 is going to give us 9. So we subtract both sides by 2, minus 2, minus 2, and I get n equals 7. Okay, so this is the number I'm going to be plugging in for x. So I'm going to put 7, whatever, I chose green this time. Hope you guys don't mind. So 7 is the value I'm plugging in for x, right here. Okay, now where is the value of the function at 7? That's where we do this work right here. So we have y equals 2 times the square root of 9. That was the whole point in choosing 7 for x, is so we could get 9 underneath the square root. So we have y equals 2 times 3, y equals 6. So now I have a new point, which is 7 comma 6. 7 comma 6, something like that. And now I'm going to be looking for a graph that looks like that. Okay, pause it if you want to copy down this work. I am moving on so I can select my answer. And here we go. Look, everything we talked about is in option B. It has a negative 2, 0, it has 2 comma 4, and it has 7 comma 6. That's everything that we wanted. Boom, there's our first one down.